Is a Taliban takeover of Afghanistan now inevitable?
No, it is not. Because you have the Afghan troops have 300,000 well-equipped as any army in the world, and an air force against something like 75,000 Taliban. It is not inevitable. The likelihood there's going to be the Taliban overrunning everything and owning the whole country is highly unlikely.
Bumblin Biden is utterly humiliated before the entire world as the Taliban take over Afghanistan in less than a week. In this video, we're going to take a look at the fall of the capital city of Kabul. We're going to see the rising calls for Biden to resign and disgrace. And stick with me to the very end of this video where I reveal precisely what the fall of Kabul really means. You're not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone. Dr. Steve here with you. Great to be with you as always. I am your daily fake news antidote as each and every day I provide patriotic analysis to help you to think better so you can feel better in these crazy and turbulent times. So if you haven't already done so, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe. Before we dive in here, we've got an amazing deal for you from our good friends over at Virtual Shield. Virtual Shield is the leader in VPNs, or virtual private networks, on your desktop, tablet, or mobile device, which protects you while browsing the internet. And for just this month alone, the month of August, they're offering 50% off their subscription plan for life. You get half off for the life of your subscription if you sign up in August. It doesn't get better than that. So make August the month. You take the plunge and begin protecting yourself online. Click on that link in the description below and sign up for a risk-free 30-day trial to Virtual Shield VPN today. All right, gang, let's dive right in here. Over the last 24 to 48 hours, the world has watched Afghanistan fall to Taliban fighters who've effectively taken over the nation that's been occupied by American and NATO forces for the last 2 decades. Videos come out from the nation's capital, people desperately trying to board evacuation flights out of the city, all as gunfire can be seen in the sky. It's being reported that President Ashraf Ghani has indeed left the country. He is now reportedly in neighboring Tajikistan. And needless to say, the recurring refrain in today's media is astonishment over the sheer rapidity of the Taliban takeover. They literally swept across the nation, captured every major city and region in a matter of a week. It was a colossal collapse, made all the more shocking given that the Afghan army was supposedly trained by the world's best military for the past 2 decades to the tune of trillions of dollars. Now stick with me to the very end of the video because I'm going to reveal one of the major reasons for why Afghanistan fell so quickly. But here at home, the political fallout from all of this is utterly devastating, and it's only just beginning. Now that press conference that I played for you at the very beginning of this video, it took place just a few weeks ago. It is already being called one of the worst presidential appearances ever. Keep in mind that Biden went on to make an even more cringeworthy statement like this one.
And do you see any parallels between this withdrawal and what happened in Vietnam with some people feeling...
None whatsoever. Zero. What you had entire brigades breaking through the gates of our embassy. 6, if I'm not mistaken. The Taliban is not the North Vietnamese army. They're not remotely comparable in terms of capability. There's going to be no circumstance where you see people being lifted off the roof of a embassy of the United States from Afghanistan. It is not at all comparable. So the question...
That, my friends, is being called Bidenssaigon moment. This is a Saigon moment because, lo and behold, what did we see over the weekend? We saw precisely that. We saw helicopters evacuating Americans from the embassy in Kabul. I mean, this has got to be one of the most damning political moments in political history. And so, virtually on cue, the calls for Biden to resign are growing by the minute. President Trump was one of the first to chime in. He released a statement condemning the Biden administration and calling on Biden to, quote, resign in disgrace. Quote, what Joe Biden has done with Afghanistan is legendary. It will go down as one of the greatest defeats in American history. It is time for Joe Biden to resign in disgrace for what he has allowed to happen to Afghanistan, along with the tremendous surge in COVID, the border catastrophe, the destruction of energy independence, and our crippled economy. Now, to make matters even worse, this is happening all as Bumblin Biden is on vacation. Biden's on vacation. Jen Circleback Psaki is nowhere to be found. Kamala, of course, isn't anywhere to be seen. The optics in all of this are utterly horrific, and they're only contributing to the total sense of incompetence of this part-time presidency. Ronald Newman, the former U.S. ambassador to Afghanistan, said it well. Quote, there's a difference between the Biden decision to leave and the Biden execution of the decision. The decision to leave is arguably justifiable. The execution of that decision is a lamentable disaster, and that is the key. Very, very few would argue that America or NATO forces should be in Afghanistan permanently. We all knew we had to leave. President Trump made the right decision in announcing that he would be pulling U.S. troops out of Afghanistan. The question comes down to, how do we leave? And that is where this pathetic part-time presidency of Bumblin Biden failed so miserably. Biden, as we saw for ourselves with that press conference, that disaster. Biden has been disastrously wrong in his assessment of the Afghan situation. He refused to listen to his military advisors and instead pulled out impulsively rather than strategically. And this, at least in part, contributed to the collapse of the Afghan military, since over the last 20 years, Afghan troops relied on U.S. air power for the successful defense against Taliban forces. And when Biden removed that air support, the entire structure of the Afghan defenses collapsed. In fact, the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is placing the blame squarely on Biden's decision to radically and hastily accelerate the troop withdrawal, with no contingency plans in place should the Taliban show signs of surging. And it's not just Biden, it's his entire administration. Look at this from the Pentagon. Gang, this was literally just 3 days ago on August 13th. Check it out.
Now, without getting into a battlefield assessment every day, I don't want to do that. But Kabul is not right now in an imminent threat environment.
Kabul is not in an imminent threat. You heard it yourself with your own ears. These are the clowns that are running our federal government. These are outright incompetent clowns that make up our permanent political class. And speaking of clowns, you may have heard, but it's now being reported that Kamala had a major role in Biden's troop withdrawal decision. Gang, things are so bad, even the mainstream media is shocked at the incompetence of Biden. CNN is admitting that this is a total and complete disaster from Bumblin Biden. But as bad as things are right now for Biden, and believe me, it's bad, but as bad as things are for him, we don't want to lose sight of the bigger picture of what's going on here with the fall of Kabul. We're beginning to see the mainstream media start to come to terms with what happened, and some of the more far-thinking moments actually recognize that Afghanistan was never ever going to become the state that George W. Bush and the neocons in Washington, D.C. envisioned. This vibrant jewel of liberal democracy in the Middle East, right? And as such, I think we need to appreciate just how much the idealism of the Bush and Obama administrations has now officially imploded. If you recall, the Bush Doctrine, which was simply a rehashed version of Woodrow Wilson's International Crusade for Democracy, it actually made the argument that liberal democracy is at the heart of the human person. that American troops would be received as liberators in the streets of Kabul, and if given the opportunity, Afghans would rush to embrace the blessings of democratic liberalism. Look what it's done for us, right? It all seems surreal at this point, that so many in the deep state actually believe this. But the truth is that the world has largely rejected the old Cold War era, where you had to choose between either Western capitalism or Soviet communism. More and more populations are instead going back and embracing their own unique customs, cultures, and traditions in a post-Cold War world. And for the Afghans, whether we like it or not, that includes theocratic tribal allegiances, like the Taliban. This is one of the reasons why so many soldiers defected. They easily abandoned liberal democracy for an Islamic political tradition that's far more akin to their unique culture and history. The Taliban brought down Soviet forces, and now they brought down American forces. And so what the fall of Kabul really means is that the world of the Cold War really is officially over. And a new world of culture, custom, and tradition is now prevailing. The modern globalist world is lost, and who would have ever thought it would be a bunch of shepherds and goat herders who brought it down. Now, before you go, you will definitely want to check out my latest video on what's behind the surge in patriot militias throughout our nation. I argue that's nothing less than the rising of a new political order. It's going to absolutely make your day. So make sure to click on the link, and I'll see you over there. God bless.